You're sitting across from someone right now, or maybe you were recently. Maybe you met them on an app, or at work, or through a friend who thought you'd get along. You probably noticed their appearance first, then their personality. Then you thought about whether they were funny, whether they were kind, whether they made you feel something you couldn't quite name. And you probably assumed that's just how attraction works. It isn't. Or rather, it's only the surface of something much older and much stranger than you realize. Because underneath every modern romantic decision you've ever made, there is a biological operating system that was built not for coffee dates and dating profiles, but for survival on an African savanna 100,000 years ago. And once you understand how that system actually works, you will never look at attraction the same way again. So, how did ancient humans actually choose a life partner? Let's start with what the world looked like when human attraction first evolved. There were no cities, no social classes, no wealth to signal, no cars to impress anyone with, no carefully curated photographs. Ancient humans lived in small bands of roughly 20 to 50 people. Everyone knew everyone. You couldn't hide behind possessions because nobody owned much. A typical hunter-gatherer camp might contain fewer personal objects than your bathroom cabinet. In that world, you couldn't fake who you were. And that changed everything about how attraction worked. Anthropologist Helen Fisher of Rutgers University spent decades studying romantic attraction across cultures and concluded something that sounds simple but is actually profound. Ancient humans were not choosing partners the way we think they were. They weren't evaluating a resume. They were reading a body of evidence accumulated over months of constant daily proximity. They watched how someone moved under pressure, whether they shared food when they didn't have to, whether they stayed calm when danger arrived, whether people liked being around them. In a world without wealth or status symbols, personality became the most visible thing a person owned. And this is where something surprising emerges. Across hunter-gatherer societies studied by anthropologists, one trait consistently ranked among the most attractive qualities a person could display. Not physical strength, not height, not symmetrical features. Humor. A landmark study of the Agta people of the Philippines, published in 2017 by researchers at University College London, found that skilled storytellers, people who could hold a group's attention, make them laugh, create shared meaning around a fire, were significantly more likely to be chosen as mates and had measurably more children than others in their community. Think about what that means. The ability to make a group of tired, hungry people feel something, wonder, laughter, connection, was a reproductive advantage. It signaled a mind that was working well, a mind that could plan, that could read social dynamics, that could diffuse tension, that could lead without aggression.
Humor in the ancient world was not entertainment. It was a cognitive fitness test. But the ancient mate selection process wasn't only about who made you laugh around the fire. It was also happening somewhere you'd never expect: your nose. In a series of studies beginning in 1995 at the University of Bern, immunologist Klaus Wedekind asked women to smell unwashed t-shirts worn by men with different immune system profiles. What he found became one of the most replicated findings in evolutionary biology. Women consistently preferred the scent of men whose immune systems were most different from their own. Not randomly different, specifically different in the region of the genome that governs immune response, the MHC complex. This is not a coincidence. Children born to parents with different immune profiles inherit broader immune protection. Your nose, operating entirely below conscious awareness, has been quietly running a genetic compatibility test on every person you've ever stood close to. Ancient humans had no deodorant, no cologne, no soap that stripped natural scent markers away. They smelled each other constantly. Every night around the same fire, every morning in the same sleeping space.
That chemical conversation was running continuously, feeding information directly into the attraction system without either person knowing it was happening. Here's what nobody tells you about that. Modern humans have largely disabled this ancient system. We shower, we wear synthetic fragrances, We spend most of our lives in climate-controlled environments surrounded by artificial scents. Some researchers believe this may be quietly disrupting partner choices in ways we don't fully understand. Selecting for chemical compatibility that our ancestors relied on automatically, but that we've now buried under layers of manufactured smell. You might be attracted to someone whose immune system is terrible for yours, and you would never know.
But attraction was only the beginning, because once ancient humans formed a pair bond, they faced a problem that no other primate had ever faced at the same scale: their children. Human infants are among the most helpless creatures on Earth. A foal can walk within an hour of birth. A human baby cannot hold its own head up for months. It requires constant feeding, constant carrying, constant protection, and constant warmth for years. A single parent trying to raise a human child in the ancient world, while also hunting, gathering, building shelter, avoiding predators, and managing social relationships within the group, was facing a logistical impossibility. This biological reality shaped what ancient humans looked for in a long-term partner in ways that go far deeper than attraction. They needed someone reliable, someone who showed up, someone who, when things got brutal, and things were constantly brutal, didn't disappear.
Anthropologist Sarah Hrdy of the University of California, Davis, in her landmark work on cooperative breeding, demonstrated that humans evolved as what she calls cooperative breeders, one of the only primate species where the entire social group participates in raising offspring. Grandparents, siblings, aunts, uncles, and group members who weren't even related to the child all played roles in its survival. This meant a potential partner wasn't just evaluated as an individual, they were evaluated as a node in a social network. Did the group trust them? Did they contribute? Were they the kind of person who stayed? The Juhuwansi people of the Kalahari, one of the most studied hunter-gatherer societies on Earth, demonstrate something remarkable about ancient pair bonding. Marriage among the Juhuwansi was not permanent by default. Divorce was common, socially accepted, and carried almost no stigma. If a relationship became genuinely bad, it ended. Both parties moved on within the same small community. There were no lawyers, no courts, no financial entanglement in the modern sense. Just two people acknowledging that the arrangement no longer served either of them.
This reveals something important that modern culture tends to obscure. Ancient humans did not evolve for lifelong monogamy as an absolute. They evolved for pair bonding, a deep attachment mechanism designed to keep two parents cooperating long enough to raise a child through its most vulnerable years. After that, the pair bond could dissolve, reform with someone else, and dissolve again. Humans, it turns out, are what some evolutionary biologists call serial pair bonders. We fall deeply, we stay intensely, and then, sometimes, we move on. The emotion that made all of this possible was not romance in the modern sense. It was oxytocin. When two people spend sustained time together, sharing food, sleeping in proximity, touching, making eye contact, the brain releases oxytocin, the same neurochemical deeply involved in the bond between a mother and a newborn child. Ancient humans weren't reading poetry to each other. They were building biochemical attachment through the mundane, repeated, daily acts of shared survival. Every hunt planned together, every fire tended together, every night spent in the same sleeping space while predators circled beyond the light. Love in the ancient world was less a feeling that arrived, and more a bond that was built, slowly, physically, through proximity and shared hardship over time. And then there is this. In Sungir, Russia, archaeologists discovered a burial site dating to roughly 34,000 years ago. Two children, buried head to head, surrounded by thousands of hand-carved mammoth ivory beads, fox teeth, carved art objects, and tools. The grave goods represent an estimated 10,000 hours of human labor. Someone, many people, spent the equivalent of years of combined effort creating objects specifically to bury with these two children. That is not survival behavior. That is grief.
That is love so embedded in a community that it survived them by 34,000 years and still communicates itself clearly across every barrier of time and language. For all our algorithms and compatibility scores and carefully constructed profiles, modern humans are still running the same ancient software. We still respond to humor as a signal of intelligence. We are still chemically reading the people we stand close to. We still build the deepest bonds, not through grand romantic gestures, but through the slow accumulation of ordinary days survived together.
The ancient humans sitting around a fire 100,000 years ago, watching someone they loved across the flames, they felt something recognizable, something you have felt, something that has no better name now than it did then. They just called it choosing. And tonight, somewhere in the background of every choice you make about who deserves your time, who makes you feel safe, who you want beside you when things get hard, those ancestors are still choosing with you.